Robby, what is on your radar today?
Well, Senator Bernie Sanders has been quite busy. He joined Representative Ro Khanna for a tour of Silicon Valley, meeting with tech industry leaders who they claim are about to be responsible for, quote, the most dangerous moment in the modern history of the world. That is a direct quote from Sanders. You see, Sanders, and to an extent Khanna, want to slow the pace of technological development in the U.S. because they think AI is bad, and they think people making money off AI is bad. For Sanders, all the gains of increased technology are going to come at the expense of working people. That's the Marxist socialist viewpoint. Technological innovation hurts the little guys. It's also completely wrong. Actually, we know that technological innovation improves living standards and makes everyone wealthier. Not just the richest 1%, but all of us. Yes, the tech CEOs are about to make a lot of money off AI. We're also going to get self-driving cars, cheaper electronic goods, renewable energy sources, more accurate medical diagnoses, huge advances in medical care overall, sustainable food sources, and on and on and on. The future is now. Unless we regulate ourselves so that we fall behind enemy nations like China that would use tech to harm us. As part of his tour of Silicon Valley, Sanders made an appearance at Stanford University, where he fielded a very perceptive question from a student or an audience participant. Why is it, that person asked, that the U.S. is responsible for so much more technological innovation that the U.S. is than Europe? Here's how Sanders responded.
I'm asking you to explain not why we have inequality, but why we've had so much growth over the last 2 decades.
Because we have very smart people who have been incentivized, who have worked very hard. But you know what? In most European countries, all people have health care as a human right. In most European countries, it doesn't cost $80,000 a year to go to college.
In other words, Sanders went right back to his same old shtick. Look, Europe definitely has some advantages. The weather sure is nice in Sicily in the summer, take it from me. But just because they have universal health care coverage, it does not make the medical care good. Just because they provide tuition does not mean their colleges are good. Yes, in Europe, the government gives you a lot of things for free, though free just means paid for by extremely, extremely high taxes, which are 60% or more in some European countries. And so the trade-off is people don't want to work as much. They certainly don't want to get rich creating new and exciting technologies when the government is just going to come in and confiscate half of their income. Moreover, the regulatory environment there is some brutally punishing. And that tech people know they have to go elsewhere to the U.S. to make things work at all. Let's listen to a little bit more of what Sanders had to say.
The point is, I understand the argument. If we don't have any regulation and you give tax breaks to these large companies, they will create these technologies. But what the point of this evening, this afternoon, is to say that while these technologies can be very useful, they will not be useful unless we have a degree of control over what these guys are doing. So it's not just technology for the sake of technology. It's technology to improve human life.
Sanders said we should have a degree of control over what the tech CEOs are building. And that sounds nice, but let's be clear on something. Who is the we there? Is it we the people? Is it we the bureaucrats? Because again, in Europe, we, the government, tells tech what to do, which is why there's no Silicon Valley in Europe and never will be. It's why tech people like Elon Musk and Pavel Durov are at odds with the governments of Europe, which take legal action to stop their companies from flourishing. Now, even if you don't fully trust Mark Zuckerberg or Sam Altman, the relevant question is, do you trust government bureaucrats more? Do you trust them to strike the balance correctly, to regulate without stifling? I sure don't. I don't think we can even trust Bernie Sanders on this. Sanders has called for a moratorium on new data centers, which we desperately need if we're going to stay competitive on AI. But Sanders thinks, you know what? Sounds too risky. Let's shut it all down. But falling behind China means taking an even bigger risk. It means we risk becoming like Europe, where tech goes to die. Not even Khanna supports a data center moratorium, if you want to know just how nutty that particular idea is. Now, I salute that Stanford student for asking Sanders the question he won't answer. Why is Silicon Valley in the U.S. and not in Europe? It's government regulatory policy. That's the reason why. And if Sanders gets his way, he'll drive the tech across the sea just as assuredly as California's insane new tax policies are exiling tech folks to Florida.
So I'm a supporter of new technology and advancement of tech, but I think that your blanket support is the part that really bothers me. The fact that you really
Blanket support. Sanders is blanket opposition.
Well, this is the thing. I think when you're talking about the data centers, like there's still a lot of research being done on how they impact the community. So I know there's a conversation there's a conversation around the water usage. Several different studies. We're not going to cite all of them, but they have different information about how they might be affecting it and people's electric bills in the direct vicinity and the environment as a whole. So we still need to see how these affect things. So having oversight is not a bad thing to me. On the flip side of the actual tech being like the wild, wild west, I think Bernie Sanders is asking the noble questions. Who's in charge of this? Who makes the decisions? Who's this going to benefit? And who's getting left out of the equation by the fast moving nature of technology and AI? And that's what Congress is literally supposed to do. So yes, Bernie Sanders could be a grandpa who's outdated in certain ways of thinking, but you need certain people like that within Congress mixed with younger people to say, okay, how do we review this and make sure that the
mixed with younger people? It's all old people.
There's some young. AOC is young. We have a young.
Well, she's got the same stupid ideas that he does. This is where I believe the government would only come in and stop something if there is persuasive evidence of harm, not a we don't know, so let's just shut it down to be safe. Because that's not safety, because that's holding us back. The data centers, it's a myth that they use a lot of electricity, or they're driving up electric. They obviously use a lot of electricity, but
no,
they're driving
Facebook
up
said that it would do its best to make sure communities around data centers are not impacted by the bill.
They're not.
Take on more of the. That means that it was driving them up, and if they're not intentionally taking on the costs.
And the water, we have plenty of water, so it's not really a problem. This is a myth. It is actually it's a form of bigotry against the data centers. It's a new ism, anti-data center ism. It's just stupidity.
So I was looking into this, and you frame regulation as like an enemy of innovation. So I was like, how did we develop Silicon Valley? And it's important to know that Silicon Valley really got a lot of its financial support in the beginning from massive government contracts. It got support from defense contracts, public research funding, even Stanford University grants that went to helping the government move forward in things like DARPA. Now, DARPA is an early funded infrastructure program that built out things like the internet, GPS. This is all funded by the government in the beginning. And so because I did this deep dive, it's like, well, the government supported the now advanced...
Contracts are not... That's government contracts is not like a giveaway. Like the people... The government needs work done.
Right.
It hires private entities to do the work.
But these foundational technologies help build what all platforms are pretty much using, like the GPS, the TomTom. Like we were using them in government official like capacities and helping put money there so they can be developed properly by people from Stanford University. And then they turn into the, alongside companies like at the time, whatever was Meta. And here we are using them throughout multiple companies. So when you work alongside the government, perhaps that'll be more incentive to not only be regulated, but to make sure that we are advancing and have the funding to advance, supported by our government.
They don't need funding from the big tech companies right now. They don't need funding from the government. They do contract with the government, but they don't need.
They need cooperation, though.
They need
They
need to be left alone. They need to be not
They need
hurt
cooperation. That's
by
why.
Punitive
how much did we say Facebook and Meta is?
That Sanders wants.
And Meta is spending what, 65 million on the next election, or on lobbying specifically about AI. That was the story last week.
Yeah, to stop them from strangling the AI baby in the crib.
But they need cooperation. Then
they need the government to leave them alone. They're not asking for the government to do anything for them. They're just saying, do not stop us from building the power centers to power this great technology that's going to make all of our lives better.
And everybody just doesn't have any water. Don't worry about it.
Huh?
Because these power centers are going up all over the place. No, everybody have no drinking water. Robby, what's on your radar?
I think we're going to fight about this one. Now, why do white liberal Democrats find it so appealing to pretend to be stupid or low IQ? We find plenty of examples of this. And here's another one. Over the weekend, California Governor Gavin Newsom appeared at an event in Atlanta, Georgia, promoting his memoir, Young Man in a Hurry, tried to make common cause with the audience by insulting their intelligence and his own. Take a look at this.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. and I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech. because I cannot read a speech.
Hey people, I'm just like you. I can't read. Seriously, that was his pitch? I think that's deeply, deeply offensive. First of all, I simply don't believe that Gavin Newsom is unintelligent or reads not at all or does really badly on standardized tests. I'm sorry, I just don't. Moreover, I don't believe that the people in the audience are unintelligent either, nor do I believe that mutual mockery is a good strategy to earn their respect, trust, and their vote. Now, to be clear, while it was assumed by a lot of folks on social media that the audience was mostly black, that idea came under scrutiny, and it looks like there were actually plenty of white people in the audience, mostly white people. Nevertheless, the idea of white liberals trying to appeal to black people by dumbing down their rhetoric is a well-worn trope, and an offensive one. As Senator Tim Scott, a proud black Republican, put it, black Americans aren't your low bar. We've built empires, created movements, outworked, out-hustled, outsmarted people like you. Stop using your mediocre academics as a way to patronize communities. It's ridiculous. Yes, white liberal candidates frequently dumb down their own language because they think for some reason this makes them more appealing to black people because of their own biases against people of color, I would say. News Nation's Bachyanger Sargon agrees. She called attention to this phenomenon on her show, citing a study which found that conservatives do not do this when they talk to black people.
When white liberals talk to black people, they do something called presenting lower competence. They dumb down their vocabulary using fewer syllables than they do when they talk to white people. And white conservatives don't do this. I remember seeing the study and thinking with horror, and we liberals call conservatives racist? What could be more racist than the patronizing view that black people need to be protected from our big vocabularies?
How telling. Here's what I think is going on. Elite progressives have absorbed the idea that in order to gain power in progressive circles, well, you need to be marginalized, or you need to be oppressed or victimized in some way. Obviously, someone like Gavin Newsom can't honestly claim he's been oppressed. He has had all the advantages that liberals believe flow naturally to a tall, moderately good-looking white man. To overcome this, he must overemphasize some perceived negative qualities, like his intelligence, his dyslexia, allegedly, so that he'll be accepted as a victim in some way. President Biden did this too, overemphasizing his stutter as some kind of general lifelong disability he has worked to overcome makes him worthy of being considered a victim, an oppressed person. When in reality, the reason people were having trouble understanding him is that he had gotten too old and was now having trouble forming complete thoughts. It also goes to show you how victim status can be used as a smokescreen to hide the truth from the American people. Are you questioning somebody's fitness for office? How dare you? You must hate the marginalized. You know, that sort of thing. It's tired and it's tedious. But at least Biden sort of had an impediment of sorts at some point. Gavin Newsom, look, he can obviously read. I don't know what else to tell you. Moreover, I doubt very much that this sort of game is appealing to voters, whether they're white or black or any other color. He's insulting our intelligence in more ways than one.
Look, he's at a book tour talking about he can't read. That doesn't even make
Doesn't
sense.
add up.
I think
Wants you to think he's a man of the... Look, I'm just a stupid, dumb kid, whatever. No, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's lived a fabulous, fantastic, wealthy, privileged life, and that's fine. I'm not looking down on... I don't care. I think this is a flawed idea that we would vote for the most relatable, stupid, low intelligence candidate. No, we want... Trump doesn't portray himself that way. He says, no, I'm smarter than everybody else. That's why I should be president. Good. They should both do that. So
overconfidence.
I don't go for this kind of thing, but that's what he's falsely claiming to be some kind of oppressed
he might
little
be
stupid
dyslexic
person.
for real. That could be real.
Okay.
Why do you believe that? That could be real.
I don't believe it, but I have no evidence.
So he has an awkward.
It's like everyone in Epstein stuff. I just
We'll talk
believe
about
it
that enough
despite
today.
the evidence.
He has this awkward attempt at relatability there. I'm really happy, I want to say, that you didn't go down the rabbit hole that Sean Hannity went down about how racist this was. Because
Yeah, it's not black people.
yeah, when I watched the local news reports, and I'm really, really happy, because then that was going to be our whole argument. That, like,
Well, yeah, I saw the video. Everyone said that before they saw...
I know, just relax, because the mayor of Atlanta...
It's because it's that N Wokeness account said that he was talking to black people, so everybody assumed that.
No,
then you
Yahoo
see
ran
the
the
video
story,
of the
it's
audience, and it's not...
Yeah, it's like in the entrance crowd that was coming in in one by one. I mean, they panned them in the local Atlanta news.
I mean, he was talking to a black person.
Yes, as the mayor, but he was saying you all, and then he told the audience, I'm not trying to offend you all. So he was the wider audience. So it's like the conversation.
He was calling them stupid, or saying, if you're stupid, I'm one of you.
About how the people
morons, I'm one of you.
Feel about Newsom doing that, which is what you made your conversation about.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good relatability tactic. What I think that people need to do more often is try to figure out what's actually authentic, that's a lived experience that they can actually discuss about how it's going to propel us forward. So when you watched Hillary Clinton go on The Breakfast Club, one of the most popular urban radio shows in our country and now internationally, she pulled out some hot sauce talking about, I put this on everything. Like, some black people literally put that on a lot of stuff because they grew up down south with
hot
spices.
Sauce.
Yes, but she does not. And nobody believed that. And it's like these weird attempts at relatability that really turn people that you're pursuing off, because there are a lot of people of all races, of all incomes that get extremely high test scores. The argument for equitability in those circumstances is generally like, oh, if you give them the same training and access to education, they'll perform well, not like dumb the scores, bring the scores down to match and let everybody who doesn't really excel in these subjects be pushed up. That's not what people are arguing. So I think when you do that and say, well, I got a bad score too, it's like, well, the goal was that you got better education, right? So that you could have a good score, not that everybody relates to this low score, right? It's not the test.
That's a pretty bad. I don't even believe he got that score. That's a pretty bad score, isn't it? I never took the I took the ACT.
Well,
so I don't know what the SAT scoring is, but I think that's a pretty bad score.
That's kind of low.
Not to insult you.
Whatever you got. I remember that was pretty low. I remember like there was like a stressful. What's the highest score? Because I remember there was like a stress about get close to.
Is it 1,400?
I was about to say 1,300. It was like you have to do this.
Yeah, I took the ACT.
It was so long ago for me.
The ACT is 36 is the highest score, I think.
I think Newsom's talked about publicly living with dyslexia, whether you want to discredit the man's account or not. I don't. I accept him at his word there. I think it's relatable to talk about, but in the context and the awkward way that he tried to make it like he's just like everyone else did not land well. And at the very least,
like going on a victim tour
him.
About being, I could do this. I'm left-handed. I'm so victimized because it's really hard to cut with scissors, and it's really annoying when you have to learn to write by hand as a kid because you smear everything you write, and you have to rest your poor, delicate wrist on the spiral notebook rings. Oh no! Oh, the suffering I endure.
A lot of leaders are
Vote
left-handed.
for me.
Obama's left-handed, so you're in good company.
Yeah, a lot disproportionate number of presidents.
Wow. Okay. Robby, what's in your radar?
Another State of the Union speech, another opportunity for the Democrats to beclown themselves with pointless theatrics and feckless resistance. They booed and they jeered and they even sung to depraved new lows. More on that in a minute. But as for President Donald Trump, he treated us to an incredibly positive, moving even, State of the Union speech that celebrated the greatness of America and the triumph of individual Americans, including the U.S. Olympic hockey team, which won the gold medal over Canada last weekend. Trump chose to recognize the players and even award the Presidential Medal of Freedom to goalie Connor Hellebuyck.
The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in. I will soon be presenting Connor with our highest civilian honor, which we will be given and which has been given to many athletes over the years. But when I say many, not too many, like 12, it's called the highest civilian honor in our country, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
And Trump recognized so many other American heroes like Warrant Officer Eric Slovin, who received the Medal of Honor for his heroism during the successful effort to capture Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. I'll be honest with you folks, I am typically not a fan of the State of the Union, which usually involves endless interruptions and clapping for bad policy ideas, no matter who's in charge, most of which will never be implemented anyway. There's too much pomp and self-importance. It's a long commercial for a political party. You know what? I don't care for those. For the first 100 years of our country, the president simply wrote a letter to Congress informing them of the State of the Union. It was Woodrow Wilson, one of America's most authoritarian presidents, one of my least favorites, who started this tradition of making a big, showy speech. I don't like it. But all that said, if we're going to have a State of the Union, This is how it should be, how Trump did it. Short on unworkable policy ideas, just long on celebration. Because this is America's 250th anniversary. This is a great nation that has accomplished so much. We should celebrate our achievements historically and presently. We should cheer our veterans and our all-star athletes. We should recognize greatness and provide a source of inspiration to the next generation. And for as much as Trump is often portrayed as self-interested or even self-obsessed, last night was the president at his best. Trump celebrated the greatness of others. He delighted in handing out medals and calling for applause for exceptional individuals. Good for him. Now, on the other hand, some Democrats descended to an embarrassing new low. No one fared worse than Representative Ro Khanna, a Democrat I previously had a great deal of respect for. Khanna, as of late, has gone all in on the Epstein files conspiracy and has accused random men of being criminally indicated Epstein co-conspirators. These men had nothing to do with Epstein or with sex crimes at all, but Khanna is committed to this misguided crusade. He even brought with him, as his guest to the State of the Union, a self-described Epstein victim by the name of Haley Robeson. Here he was with Robeson on CNN immediately prior to the State of the Union.
How important is this moment? I mean, just to think about this, right? I know that Haley and others have been so brave. They have gone to Capitol Hill. They have met with so many of your colleagues. They have convinced many of your colleagues, including some on the Republican side, to fight for the cause of transparency here, right? And that is because of Haley and others like her. But Trump has seen all of those things through a screen, right? He's never met with them in person. He's never taken any of those meetings.
I did a little bit of research on this person. Now, I'll concede, Robeson was apparently victimized by Epstein when she was underage. After that, she became an Epstein accomplice. Yes, she has admitted publicly that for years she received payments from Epstein to supply him with access to underage girls. She instructed them to lie, by the way, and say they were over 18. She referred to herself as a sort of Heidi Fleiss, notorious madam, as far as Epstein goes. So let me state this very, very clearly. If anyone in Epstein's orbit can be credibly accused of trafficking underage girls for sex, well, there's someone who qualifies. That's a pretty stark difference between the two parties, no? For the State of the Union, Trump brought the gold medal winning U.S. Olympic hockey team. The Democrats brought a woman who trafficked underage girls to Jeffrey Epstein. How very interesting.
You're trying to derail me and don't let me talk about the State of the Union and talk about Epstein. I won't do it.
Okay.
I hear you. I don't know much about this Robeson woman, but I also heard about Stockholm Syndrome. So if she was somebody's captor and in a bad situation with Epstein and then repeated that behavior, I'm not going to victimize a victim.
She
so
was not forced. It wasn't against her will. She was paid.
That's not how Stockholm Syndrome works when you go back to somebody.
I don't think we can...
I don't know if I can
wipe away people's guilt.
But I don't think that we should
I'm not the one
take a victim and blame her for how she behaved
is.
afterwards.
But I'm not, like... I'm just being screamed at that there's all these sex traffickers in the Epstein orbit we have to get. And here's someone who actually meets the definition, and that's the person they're putting on a pedestal. It's insane.
I think Ro Khanna has a noble mission. Obviously, we have another block
he lost
about
his mind.
We have another block about State of the Union, so I can get all my perspective.
Yeah, we're gonna keep talking.
We're gonna keep talking about it, but I will say I'll start with the first thing. This was basically the Golden Globes, how many awards he gave out. I'm very happy for him. But, you know, that's something that you do when you have a bad track record. Your polling is extremely low in the 30s. The economy is terrible. And so you have to make something else, your showmanship work. And we know that Trump is a showman, and that's what he did. Gave out a lot of awesome medals. That's nice. Another thing that I like that he did is that he said that he's going to make big tech pay for these data centers. A lot of people who live in those communities, I've been advocating and talking about those people who are upset about rising electricity costs. Yeah. He mentioned that. He also said the thing
and I have no problem with that. They can pay. I agree. They should pay for the cost of building them, and they should be allowed to do so. But yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, so and there's another thing. He said he brought a woman from Houston who was in the home buying space, just like I was, who was getting outbid by corporations, what he calls Wall Street landlords. And he said he's going to continue to pursue stopping that. So I appreciated these sentiments.
Not as favorable toward, but
what do you mean? As somebody, am I your friend? I tried to buy a house and I was getting outbid by corporations. Do you have any empathy for your friend sitting right next to you?
No.
Okay.
I have empathy for you personally.
You know, I think their speech for his intent was everything that Republicans wanted for him. They didn't want him to go off on these pet peeves. They didn't want him to attack the Supreme Court.
He didn't attack the Supreme Court.
They didn't want any of this stuff. And he casually talked about the economy, tried to stay on board. Now, the way that he talked about the economy and the accomplishments, to me, it's either misinformed or blatant lies. We can get into that in the next block, but he did talk about it. So as far as staying on message, I guess this is one of those times where he stayed on the actual message, like Susie Wiles was asking him to do in the meeting that they had, or asking the Republicans to do.
We have so many great Americans, and it is nice to see people recognized for their achievements and for their struggles. There were people there who had been, who had suffered tragedy, who were recognized in persevering and the efforts we'll take to make restitution to them, including the parents of Irina Zarutska. Erica Kirk was there, and others, and the veterans who were celebrated for their achievements and from going back to World War II. That was wonderful. That officer, Eric Slovin, who was so instrumental in the Maduro capture, and of course our hockey team. So it's we have a lot to be proud of as a country, and we sometimes focus too much on the negative and the problems.
Well, the State of the Union is supposed to focus on the current state as well. So the current state is that people are uncomfortable and financially strapped, but he didn't want to focus on that state. He wanted to focus on some more of the positive things, as I understand, because he, like I said, the approval rating is not approving.
Well, I approved of what I saw.
Robbie, what is on your radar?
While most of America has been celebrating the awesome victory of our Olympic hockey team over Canada for the first time in 40 years, not everybody's so pleased with them. Sounds crazy, right? But a New York Times columnist for their athletic subsection, Jerry Brewer, he wrote a column saying that the team won gold and then lost the room. What? Lost the room? What room? The Feminist Studies Department at some sports-hating, fun-killing liberal arts college? Because I think most people are pretty happy about the win, even if you don't like or care about hockey. I fully admit this is the most interested I've been in hockey since I was a kid in Detroit in the 90s, watching our Red Wings win the Stanley Cup. So what gives? Well, the New York Times and some other liberals are mad that some members of our hockey team had the audacity to meet with President Donald Trump. Shake his hand even. Accept medals from him and praise. How shocking. How horrifying. Don't they know they're helping to normalize fascism? Seriously, that's it. That's the problem. Brewer writes, these are men who thrilled a nation and rocked the world, and as adults, they need to be more savvy. Trump, perhaps more than most modern presidents, understands the optics of standing next to winners. It normalizes him. It softens his cruel instincts and crude jokes, recasting them as locker room banter. It washes his reputation and reduces the impact of polls that indicate a significant majority of Americans disapprove of his second term. These champions have agency. In the afterglow of triumph, they have more agency than they ever will. They should be wary of giving it away so casually. Okay, but here's the problem with that. Supporters of Trump are a majority of the country. He won the election and he won the popular vote. Trump is normal now. Sorry about that. And I would agree it doesn't help us at all for professional athletes to lean way into politics or start talking about their views on issues. In fact, the hockey team avoided doing just that, and I give them great credit for it. But coming to the State of the Union, taking a photo with Trump, I mean, come on. That is normal. It's normal no matter who the president is. Remember Barack Obama taking this photo with Olympic gymnast Michaela Maroney? I don't remember people being upset about that. I wasn't upset about it. I thought it was a cool photo. Very cool. The New York Times needs to get over itself. Chill out. There's nothing wrong with the president being excited about the performance of our Olympians, our athletes receiving some much-deserved admiration. Ironically, the one athlete the liberal media did seem eager to celebrate was Eileen Gu, a traitor who chose to compete on China's Olympic team. You'd think that if we were so worried about normalizing totalitarianism, we'd be more upset about an athlete choosing to associate herself with one of the world's most brutal and authoritarian regimes, Communist China. But liberal Vox hailed Eileen Gu as a winner of the narrative surrounding the Olympics. And they said the U.S. men's hockey team were losers because they met with Trump. Losers. Ridiculous. Mainstream media wonders why so many Americans hate them. I think they have their answer.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you flat out, I didn't like that New York Times article. I think that people should have the autonomy to go visit the White House, whether it's purely for the fact that you want to go see what it looks like or meet a sitting president. I think that we put too much on athletes to make these big decisions about whether they want to go to a White House or not.
I agree.
For some people, the whole team doesn't have to be in unison. So even when you see like an NBA team win in the middle of something and they don't want to meet with Trump, then it automatically becomes political. I think accepting the State of the Union invite is probably a big deal. Most people in their lives are not going to go have an opportunity to be at a State of the Union address, so it would be a huge deal. So I think, I'm on board with you. I don't think we could skip over the fact that President Trump disrespectfully talked to the men's team and made a misogynistic joke about the women's team. And so therefore there's a whole controversy about the way that our president behaves.
But that was Trump, not the team.
Yes, the president made that
Right,
joke and the team laughed about it.
Yeah,
And
you're
so-
going to laugh. I mean,
No, you're
somebody
not
tells
going to
a
laugh, Robbie. I tell you
joke.
all the time, we're not going to laugh about misogynistic. We're not going to laugh about
You
gender
laugh
roles.
even if you don't like the joke.
No, I
You
don't
laugh
think
to get along.
But that's part
It's
of
awkward not to laugh.
That's part of the argument, I think, that when we talk about this writer for the New York Times is making, is that our president is always inappropriate. Like more often than not.
You can tell on this
wildly
show, Lindsay,
inappropriate.
as many misogynistic jokes as you want, and I will laugh along with you.
Well, I'm
When the
not gonna
cameras
do
aren't
that.
rolling, you should hear the things that comes out of her mouth.
So the thing is that the president also, on top of making the misogynistic joke, we know that he genuinely probably feels like the women have less of a win than the men, even though Jack Hughes, I believe, and Megyn Kelly did the same thing, except she did the win that was so unfathomable 3 days in advance of him, and she got no recognition, no phone call, nothing, and her invite was an afterthought after his long
Well,
conversation.
he said
with
they're
Jack
coming to the White House, too.
Yeah, it was an
Which is great.
afterthought. He said, well, I got to invite the women, so, and they all started laughing, and they turned down his State of the Union address. So the president consistently is inappropriate. So I get why somebody would be riled up about accepting an invite, but I do think that for an athlete to choose to go up there, you shouldn't take it as anything more than choosing to take a trip somewhere. It doesn't mean that they acknowledge and accept every single
If the
thing
New York
that's come out of
Times
their
had
mouths.
written the men's hockey team is awesome, but we should also recognize the achievements of the women's hockey team, I would not be complaining, and no one would be complaining. But also
Well, that was they mentioned it in the article that the president made this misogynistic joke, which no one corrected him on. I mean, I guess you'd be kind of uncomfortable correcting a president, but some people wouldn't.
It's a joke.
Right is right, wrong is wrong. Okay. You know what I mean?
And then also Vox, how absurd they are. They call them losers. They
Yeah,
put them in the L category.
that's not
And they
nice.
put Eileen Gu in the winning category.
And this is the
China
biggest,
simp.
This is for
Communist
some people.
China simp.
This is the biggest moment of their lives, winning a gold medal over a team that a lot of people looked at as unbeatable, the Canadian team. So let's not diminish a huge moment for people because of political affiliation that they not even saying that they have. They just want to be winners and not criticized. I think in the last months, what I've seen through our conversations is that we constantly ask athletes these random questions about how they feel about the U.S. in turn, which they relate to how they feel about President Trump, which are not the same thing.
Right.
You
And
can feel a way about the country.
They
versus
should just
how you
say
feel about
nothing. And the men's hockey team did say nothing. They were asked, and I think it was it Jack Hughes at I think it was him at the press conference who just said, yeah, I don't really know. So, I don't want to talk about it, which is the correct answer. And our athletes are put in this position by our media when news people never ask, again, the Chinese athletes, what about the treatment of the Uyghurs, which is far worse than anything Donald Trump is doing. That's actual authoritarianism, but we don't call them out for it. And so it's just absurd. Just ask them about the games and ask them about sports stuff. Stick to sports. That's my advice for sports people. Stick to sports.
Well, I think if they're going to lean into politics, they're welcome to, but just know it's a whole different world. And once you do,
I mean, if they
you
want to
kinda
say
gotta
something,
stick
they
beside
can, but
your
they don't know
perspective.
anything, and it's better if they know.
Some of them might, and that's why people might be hesitant, like the women's team, to come to a State of the Union when they know the president has said more than one thing derogatory about women, and then they got folded right into that through a phone call and a misogynistic joke. So some people might take the actions as a cosign. I think no matter how you take it, it's up to you to make the decision, and we shouldn't politicize a huge moment in these athletes' lives. Like
I think
this.
just as reporters shouldn't come up to me and start asking me about hockey, they shouldn't go up to hockey players and start asking them about politics.